Hello, welcome to the first session of day 4. We're going to get straight into today's topic, which is expanding upon these ways in which you can extend the circle of your training to other activities. Physical disciplines and arts. If you're new to the course and you don't have a physical discipline or art of some kind, I highly recommend that you add it to your training regimen. Obviously, this is not a required element of being in the course. This is just a recommendation, and I'm going to tell you why at some length. One of my teachers says the body is the workshop. We discussed this, I believe, earlier on in this retreat. If you make the body and mind a nicer place to be, it'll be much easier to do the training that needs to be done with the body and mind. Also, in the Pali Suttas, in the Anga Sutta, it discusses this as well. It says to do the type of training that we're doing, the body needs to be free from illness, from bodily discomfort. It needs to have good digestion. It needs to not be too cold, not too hot, of moderate strength, and fit for exertion, fit for doing work. So let's talk about what types of things we can do that will make the body more like this, right? All sorts of things. We can do martial arts, we can do yoga, we can practice dance or gymnastics, we can do powerlifting, we can do sports. Any of these activities can be used as yet another bridge to take something that's happening on the cushion and bridge it over into our real life. But they also feed back on the cushion in that you can test your capability to do what you're doing on the cushion in real life in increasingly demanding circumstances. And that's the key. When you're on your deathbed, you may be in a great deal of pain, your mind may be tired, you may not be able to breathe properly, and so forth. And you need to be able to generate, in particular, generate your practice at that time. If you've never trained in anything which made your body uncomfortable, which made you physically uncomfortable, and you never challenged yourself to generate these minds in demanding circumstances, how are you going to do it in the most demanding circumstance at the end of your life? Also, you think, I have this capability and that capability, and I'm really doing this well and that well. But it's one thing to generate concentration sitting on a, as one of my teachers used to say, sitting on a black cushion in an air-conditioned Dharma center or in your air-conditioned home in the quiet part of the house. That's one thing. It's completely another thing to be able to generate some concentration of this caliber in the midst of your real activity, and to be able to do it with that sort of unbiased, fully focused awareness. When there's a challenge, when you're sparring, when you're doing push hands, when you're lifting 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 400 pounds, whatever. Yeah? So can you generate these minds under demanding conditions? Because in the end, we need the capability to generate these under every condition. And right now, you don't know if you can do that or not, because you haven't put yourself under pressure. Also, as you get older, the body will stop working the way that it did when you were younger. So if you don't work on the body now, then as you age, you'll become less and less capable of doing what you need to do in terms of your training. This is actually something that the Taoists are quite keen on. Everybody thinks, I think, outside of Taoism, that the Taoists are just obsessed with their health and they want to figure out how to live forever in this physical body. And from what I understand of of Taoism. That might be true of some people, but really the idea is you want to make the vessel in which you're doing the work as capable as possible of doing the work for as long as possible. So instead of dying and being reborn at the age of 60, you live to 120 and you keep all of the faculties of your training intact for as long as possible in this life so that you can complete the work in this one single life. So this is one of the Taoist sort of elements that's quite helpful, I think. If you make this body healthy, if you make it strong, if you make it capable, then there's a better chance, accidents and so forth notwithstanding, that you can maximize its lifespan. If you can maximize its lifespan with the greatest degree of comfort and so forth in the body, there's a better chance that you can then actually gain the realizations you're trying to gain. So in the tantric tradition, they also talk about there's a vow to maintain your physical body, to not just discard the body and stop thinking about it. You need to continue taking care of the body. So this isn't just something coming from Taoism, for example. Physical disciplines also slowly increase your full body awareness. One of the things that you're doing in terms of training and meditation is slowly opening the sense gates, right? When you're training in concentration, you're closing the sense gates. When you're engaging with your life, you're opening the sense gates and trying to maintain the realizations you've gained on the cushion. But right now, your sense gates aren't very open. Right now, as you're listening to this, you probably aren't aware of your left foot. You probably aren't aware of the scapula on your back. You're probably not aware of a whole bunch of corners and crevices of your body. You're certainly not aware of your internal organs. You're not aware of where your heart is, your lungs are, your liver. You're not aware of your lower intestines and all of these things. So you're not actually aware of very much of what's going on. If you wanted to do, for example, the analysis of the body that you find in the Pali Suttas, where you look at the 32 different components of the body, wouldn't it be really helpful to have direct experiential access to those? That when you looked at the bones, you could actually feel where all the bones are in your body? I'm not talking about in a vague way. I'm talking about that the hole between the musculature and so on is right here, and you know where it ends, and you know where it goes, and all of that, because you can actually feel where the bones are. And if you could feel where the sinews are, and you could feel where the muscular system goes to, and you could feel each organ that you're putting the mind into and looking at and analyzing, this would be very, very helpful. This also helps with meditation on selflessness. If your awareness is able to actually see the components of the body with much more granularity, well, now you have a very, very stable basis, experiential basis to say, when I look inside this body, I don't see anything that is a self. I see a liver, I see a stomach, I see lungs, I see a heart, and so on. And being able to actually experientially touch those and see that they're moving, see that they're not staying the same, and so on, very helpful for advanced meditative analysis. So a physical discipline that is a complete physical discipline will increase your full body awareness from head to toes. Also, they give you immediate feedback on your attention. For example, if you're standing in a one-legged standing pose in yoga and you're bent over like this and you have one leg underneath you, right? If you lose your attention for 1 second, you fall right over. And so this gives you some insight into, am I actually maintaining my concentration, or am I just pretending that I'm maintaining concentration? Once you build up the strength to hold the foot in place and the ankle and the knee and the hip and all of this so that you can hold the pose, the only reason you're going to fall over more or less, is that you lost focus. So these more challenging kinds of physical exercises give you feedback on the quality of your own mind, which is exactly the same type of mental factors, recollection, and vigilance that you're going to be using when you're seated on the cushion and you're doing your cushion training. If you have a good mentor in these practices, then the training in your physical discipline is directly translatable to your training on the cushion. It's not something you have to bridge. You're doing the training when you're physically training in the art. My teacher, Mr. Whitfield, my primary teacher, he trained in Zen for years with Kimura Sensei, but he never told me that they sat down and did meditation and all of this. They may have, but he never emphasized that whatsoever. He taught Zen through the training of the art as the training. He used to tell this story the first time, I think he said he was 16, the first time that he asked Kimura Sensei about Zen. Kimura Sensei said, "Oh, get out of here." And then he asked him again, and he was like, "Ah, get out of here." And then he asked him again, and finally Kimura Sensei said, "Oh, you want to know about Zen, huh? Okay, go over there and do 1,000 reverse punches on that bag." And Kimball said, "Okay." And he went over, starts doing these punches, boom, boom, boom. And he said somewhere around 700. And then Kimura Sensei came and sat and started watching him. And then at some point he went, "That was it. That one. That punch was Zen." So there are ways to teach the art that are mind training. They are the training. They're not something separate. And there are teachers like that out there. If you can find one, you're incredibly blessed. They're quite rare, but if you can find one, oh, really unbelievable. One of the additional benefits is that martial arts, for example, is a direct corollary to what you're going to be doing on your cushion. Training on the cushion is going to be something that takes a long time. There's really no end point to the training in this life, very likely. And so, just like martial arts, there's no end point. There's no, "Oh, I've done it now." I mean, if you get a black belt, or the equivalent in Chinese martial arts, if someone certifies you to carry the lineage forward or what have you, that's the beginning of your training. You're now a competent person, and you need to develop that competency to new levels, new levels, new levels. It's precisely the same in your meditative training. Metta is an immeasurable. Until that loving kindness becomes absolutely immeasurable, it hasn't been accomplished. Infinite. So there's some work to do, yes? The other thing that martial arts are good for, very often martial arts include methods for storing chi, storing prana, storing long, winds, right? They involve some methods where you're training the breath in such a way and training the posture in such a way that it changes your psychophysical system, it changes the way that chi moves in your body and so on. And because of this, you'll find it easier to complete the training on the cushion also. So this is a profound benefit. It's more explicit in my humble experience in modern times in arts where they are internalized arts. So things like Aikido from Japan, Tai Chi, Bagua, Xingyi, Yichuan from China, things like this. This isn't to say that training in karate won't lead you to the same results. They do have methods in hard arts for these things also. I just think that the internal arts are a bit better. Personally, I think they're better for this. So my recommendation would be, if you have any inclination for it, choose martial art as your physical discipline and find an instructor who seems to have at least character, some type of character that you want. Even if they don't seem to have profound realizations, they at least seem to have a type of way of being in the world that you want to emulate. So beyond their martial skill. Yes? So next, I would say probably the next best from there is yoga. And when I say yoga, I don't mean somebody that got their certification 3 weeks ago from John Smith, Billy Bob II in Arkansas. I mean someone who has spent 10 or 20 years training hardcore in a traditional lineage of yoga, something like Ashtanga yoga or Kundalini yoga, and they have taken that practice from physical postures to meditative training to wind training or Kundalini training. And this has been a real profound journey that they've taken with the training and the practice. And they've done it with at least some good teachers. It doesn't mean they have to have had all good teachers, but some good teachers. If possible, find a studio or training environment where they're not playing music. If that's not possible, then at least try to find a place where there's a good traditional lineage of yoga being taught, not just yoga for health. I put dance the next one down from yoga, only because with dance, for example, classical dance, Western classical dance, ballet, it can be quite damaging to the hips and knees because of the leg posture. You know, you take your feet and you turn them completely outward, and you twist the hips into a position that's not natural. So a lot of dancers have knee problems and hip problems when they get older. Modern ballet, on the other hand, tends to have a lot less of those types of awkward body positions. So there are many forms of dance, including things like salsa and these other things, where there's enough going on there that you'll develop the focus, you'll develop the discipline, you'll develop a lot of the same qualities you would have developed in martial arts. I just think martial arts is more complete. And then sport. Sport is also quite good. You know, sport gives you immediate feedback on whether or not you're paying attention. If you lose your focus for a fraction of a second playing basketball, someone might steal the ball. You might miss the pass. You might miss the shot. And if you can do that type of training with a mind of calm abiding, or the best you can generate, then a lot of the I want to do this to win for me kind of attitude goes away. And a much more serious kind of attitude emerges that is actually much more suited to the game, much more capable of winning than the mind that is just there to win. If you want to do something else of a physical nature, there are quite a few, especially in the Japanese corpus, arts like no and tea ceremony and all sorts of things, where a realized master at some point came in and said, okay, how do I take this ordinary activity and turn it into something that is a training method for people's minds? So you can find those in some traditional environments. Arts and crafts. So here's the Maha Mangala Sutta, the Blessings Discourse, and the Buddha is saying to have much learning, to be skillful in handicraft, well trained in discipline, and to be of good speech. This is the greatest blessing. And if I'm not mistaken, he's talking about some of the things that lay people sort of pick up that are actually a great blessing to them in the course of their ordinary lives. And one of them is handicraft, right? One of them is art, basically. So I have a whole huge list of things here. the essence of this section on art is that if you use something like calligraphy or tea ceremony or some other demanding artistic practice, that can be a wonderful support for your training. Just astonishingly good. And this is because you may be doing something else that you enjoy, like I said, calligraphy, painting, pottery making. But if you're doing it in a demanding environment where it's not just you getting to decide how to do everything all the time, then you're training all of those same mental skills that you would be training on the cushion. And so this can be extremely beneficial to your training. Extremely beneficial. In particular, if you're doing one of these sort of traditional art forms that someone has already gone through the trouble of transforming into a way of training the mind, like Japanese flower arranging, Japanese gardening, Japanese archery, these sorts of things. So in terms of physical disciplines, here's the bottom line. If you want to have an external demanding set of conditions that give you way more feedback on how your training on the cushion is going, physical discipline is second to none. Physical disciplines and arts and so forth, when properly done, also provide this not just sort of extension of your practice in sort of a one-way direction, but also feedback in the other direction. In other words, maybe in the martial arts you're storing more chi in the lower basin, and so because of this you can sit much more easily on the cushion. Maybe in the martial arts you're learning how fragile the body is, how easy it is to break the body, and so forth, and so you're increasing your awareness of impermanence. Through training in dance, maybe you're learning that all the components of the body and how they fit together, and so your ability to do things like the 32 parts of the body meditation from the Pali Suttas increases. So this creates a really powerful feedback loop, in addition to creating health, in addition to giving you more discipline, in addition to giving you better character, in addition to increasing your humility, because there are going to be so many people that are better than you at whatever it is you decide to do, and so forth. So the benefits are incredible and diverse. Physical discipline is a huge blessing. Training in the arts is a huge blessing. If you can do one or the other, or both, definitely do this. Okay, let's do our 5 minutes. May the precious Bodhi-mind not yet born arise and grow. May that arisen not decline but increase more and more. May the precious supreme view of emptiness not yet born arise and grow. May that arisen not decline but increase more and more. See you tonight.